Hello, hello, and welcome to another one of our little lunch dates. Today we've got, our meal was a little bit late in getting here, so we are going to transfer our steak fajita breakfast bowl to a real plate. How are you? How is it going in your world? How are you enjoying eating lunch with me? I'm loving it. I know the sound is junky in a kitchen, and that's okay because you know what? The sound's not all that great in restaurants either. So it just all goes hand in hand. Today, I want to talk about great foods to eat and foods to avoid out on a date because it's important. This applies whether you are super familiar with the person that's sitting across from you or if it's a brand new relationship. So even though we don't recommend lunch dates or meal dates or breakfast dates, hopefully she stays over and you enjoy breakfast together in bed. And by breakfast, I mean sex. But there are certain things to think about when thinking about eating a meal together. And so I want to focus on eating meals out and about, but keep in mind that all of this is also applicable when you're at home. So we'll talk about some of the nuances of eating at home and eating out and all the things. I meant to move that candle over there. Oh well. Girl problems. So I'm going to eat my lovely breakfast steak bowl, and you're going to eat, what are you eating for lunch today? I want to talk about things that you need to avoid specifically whenever you are eating a meal out on a date, out in public. And I say this in all seriousness because I was raised where you have good manners when you're out of the house in particular. So when you're out in public, you must bring your best self forward. That includes eating properly, having good manners at the table. And even if you're eating something messy like barbecue, or you're eating at a restaurant that isn't necessarily, linen napkins and tablecloths, you still need to consider using good manners when you're eating, when you're conversing with the woman in front of you, and when you're just enjoying the company of someone old or new. This could apply to a meal out with your parents, your grandmother, whatever it is. So keep all of these things in mind when thinking about eating out at a restaurant. First, I'd like to encourage you to avoid messy foods, spicy foods, foods that are traditionally an inconsistent temperature. They have hot spots. We'll talk about that. And any foods that you have to eat with your hands. I know that I just eliminated a ton of your favorite foods because guys love foods that are messy and spicy and that you have to eat with your hands. You just love them. I get it. But out on a date, you want to use your best manners. And so when you're using your best manners, you don't eat those foods. You eat with a fork. Let's start with messy foods. This is an easy one. This is an obvious one, I get, but we're talking about chicken wings, buffalo wings. We're talking pizza. We're talking spaghetti. A lot of these food, crab legs, a lot of the foods that will inevitably make a mess without fail. And that's some of the fun of them, right? Eating ribs is fun, but it's not a great date food. Even if you've been eating with this woman for 10,000 dates, I don't care. Eat ribs at home. So messy foods will inevitably get all over your face. They inevitably get on your clothing. Something splatters, something spills. It's just not proper eating out restaurant etiquette to eat messy foods out in public. If you love messy foods, if you love ribs, if you love crab legs, if you love chicken wings, buffalo wings, even spaghetti, these are delicious, wonderful foods that I also enjoy. Eat them at home. So order in, make them yourself. What's great about eating messy foods at home is that you can have a wet washcloth right there. Everyone has their own little setup, and you can clean yourself completely. It doesn't matter if you have a towel on your lap, or if you have washcloths at the table. Whenever you're at home, you can get away with this kind of thing. You can eat the ribs, you can eat these delicious like barbecues and seafoods and even the pizzas and things like that are messier. But out in public, keep it to things that you can eat with a fork, a knife, a spoon, that you can use proper eating etiquette, even if you aren't taught. I personally was actually sent to manners course because it was just part of the way that I was brought up. It was expected that everyone knew proper table etiquette. But even if you were not raised that way, there are things that you can know that I want to talk about today that you can avoid, that automatically move you up the echelon of good table manners. So it goes a long way. This breakfast bowl looks phenomenal. It's steak, it's avocado, it's cheese, it's eggs, and it's fried potatoes. Yum. Next, I want to talk about foods that you need to eat with your hands. This is a super bummer because you guys know I love pizza. And I assure you that I do not enjoy eating pizza with a fork and a knife. There's just no better way to ruin a great pizza than to eat it with a fork or a knife. But I'm not going to eat it out on a date because that would be tacky. Pizza, burgers, even the most wonderful, there are high-end sandwiches that you can have at some restaurants. They're just not a good idea. So number one, they fit into the messy category. Inevitably, something that you are eating with your hands, whether it's an appetizer, whether it's something you're grabbing, or it's a sandwich of some kind, or a burrito the size of your arm, those are really popular and delicious, but they're not good date foods. So anytime that you're eating something with your hands, it's messy. You're inevitably going to get something on your hands. Oftentimes there's stuff sliding out the back end, so that's messy. Also, for the sake of you having conversation and sitting in front of someone and sharing a meal, it's distracting to constantly be doing this and blocking your face. Remember how during COVID, when people were masking up and all this stuff, it was so hard to read faces because the face was not visible. The mouth, this portion of your face was not visible. That's the same part of your face that's blocked when you're eating a sandwich or you're eating a burrito or you're eating something with your hands that requires constant this. So people are focusing on your hands and not what you're saying or your words or your mouth. And so they're not reading you properly. This is really important in an early date scenario especially, but it could be equally as important if you're having a possibly terse conversation with someone that you have been with a long time. If you're eating and you're doing this and you're constantly covering your face, they might be having a hard time reading kind of the real thoughts behind what you're saying. So keep all of this in mind and keep the sandwiches, the burgers, the burritos, keep those kinds of finger foods and things that you have to eat with your hands out of the dating scenario. You eat them in the privacy of your home. Eat them when you're out with your bros. I don't care. Just don't eat them when you're on a date. It's tacky. All of these rules apply to dating scenarios, okay? So you can get away with a lot more, even out in public, if you are out with the guys. If you want to eat ribs and wings and drink beer out with the guys, nobody cares. No one's expecting you to have proper etiquette whenever you are at a sports bar with a bunch of dudes and you got your cap backwards and you're burping and you're doing all of the gross boy stuff. That is absolutely passable. No one's expecting you to have proper etiquette in that scenario. In fact, worse etiquette is more encouraged because it's fun. You're having a good time. It's meant to be lighthearted and silly and fun. So enjoy the foods that I'm nixing from your dating life. Enjoy them out with the guys and enjoy them at home. Foods to avoid. Foods of an inconsistent temperature. So things that have hot spots, pizza is really bad about having just hot spots. Inevitably the cheese slides down on your face, it burns you. You end up with like a roof of your mouth burn. Pizza is a brutal thing to eat that I adore. Another thing that is really notorious for this kind of inconsistent temperature is like baked ravioli and like lasagnas and things like that are at Italian restaurants they actually come out of an oven in their serving dish. So they're super hot, they're bubbling, they're coming out to your table, super hot. You have to be cautious of this and avoid those because inevitably you do the breathe, talking, eating thing. You're burning yourself. You're hitting hot spots without thinking about it. Just about the time you think it's cool enough to eat, you actually hit a place that is scorching hot. And then you're trying to talk and have a conversation and eat, and you're eating with your mouth open because you're breathing. Like all of this is not sexy. Dates, whether it's a first date, an early relationship, or you've been together forever, dates are meant to lead to sex. Dates are meant to be sexy activities. They're supposed to be fun and romantic and sexual. So don't eat things that is actually a turnoff or unattractive when you're sitting across. These rules do not just apply to women. Men need to bring good behavior and good table etiquette to a date. So whenever you are of a sexual mindset, which if you're out on a date, even if you're grabbing a quick bite with your wife of 20 years and 3 kids, still use good table manners and still consider all of these things whenever you're doing so. The next thing that I want to encourage you to avoid out on a date, food-wise, is spicy foods. Now, you may love spicy foods. She may love spicy foods. But foods that are traditionally spicy or that you're adding extra spice to really amp up the heat because you just love it are the furthest thing from sexy because you are getting sweaty. Inevitably, you're like dripping in sweat. Your face is getting hot. You've got cracked sweat. Like there's all kinds of things happening in your body that is not sexy. Now, if you want to work up a sweat in your workout, lifting heavy weights, awesome. If you want to work up a sweat in a particularly physical round of sex, fantastic. But working up a sweat, eating a meal out in public is disgusting. And no one wants to have sex with someone who's a sweaty pile of goo in front of them at the table. That is disgusting. So, meals that are extra hot, feel free to have with your guys. Meals that are spicy and traditionally will just burn you up. Even if you are the most hardened spice, hot foods lover in the world, every date doesn't have to be a rainbow of flavor and spice and heat in your mouth. If it's going to make you have painful diarrhea in the end, maybe avoid it. maybe avoid it when you're out on a date because it's not sexy to be partaking in those kinds of things. Dates are always supposed to be a precursor to sex. So keep all of these things in mind. Stay away from messy foods. Stay away from foods that have hot spots or inconsistent temperatures. Stay away from foods that you have to eat with your hands. This includes appetizers and things of that nature. And stay away from foods that are super spicy. Another thing that I will touch on as far as the eating with your hands thing, although this is a great way to kind of get a read on a girl who may be new in front of you, I'm not a germaphobe. I just want to preface this by saying I'm not a germaphobe. But if someone is eating with their hands and hasn't washed their hands and literally not touched a darn thing between the restroom at a restaurant and putting their hand in their food or picking their food up or eating out of a shared fries basket or anything like that, that is disgusting. Because restaurants, even if you wash your hands like a nursing, person or a doctor in the restroom, if you touch the handle, if you touch the chair, if you touch the table, those tables are grimy and disgusting. So there are lots of things that you touch without even thinking about it, even after you've washed your hands at a restaurant. You do not live there. That is not your home. It is, you don't know how clean or dirty it is, and that is just a disgusting habit to have. So I recommend not ordering any foods that you have to eat with your hands. But if you do, you can tell a lot about the girl in front of you by whether she excused herself to the restroom to wash her hands just as the food was starting to come out, that she knew she was going to be using her hands in some way, and just how she handles things like that. So again, I'm not super psychotic about germs, but there's a certain level of cleanliness that's just expected whenever you are out on a date, even with a wife of 20 years. So please keep all of those things in mind. Because at the end of it, and my theme of life and relationship is that all dates lead to sex. I'm just going to let you sit with that for a moment. If your date isn't having a nice time, if your date's distracted because of messy foods, if your date's distracted because she has food on her face, she's had to clean her face off and inevitably taken like makeup with it because it was, rib juice and barbecue sauce and all kinds of stuff on her face that she had to clean off. If you're having a conversation and you have junk in your beard and messy stuff in your beard and food residue in your mustache or whatever, and it's not getting cleaned off, it's gross. All it takes is like one time of that crumb, that chunk sitting in your facial hair, and we can't get that out of our heads, even if you cleaned it up pretty quickly. So keep this in mind. Messy foods that you eat with your hands. If we can't see your face, we're not listening to what you're saying. We're distracted by you eating with your hands. We're distracted by how your hands smell now, how they carry the scent of the food, and how those hands are not going to be touching me because they are disgusting. They've been covered in sauce. They've been dripping in mustard, whatever it is. Girls remember things like this. All dates lead to sex, even if she's the mother of your children and this is your 10,000th meal. If it's a spicy meal, avoid, because you're dripping in sweat, you're hot, you're sweaty, you're pitty. Like, there's so much disgusting stuff that goes along with watching someone eat in public, specifically spicy foods, because it's just not a sexy thing to do. I've never seen a eating contest on television where these guys are shoveling food in their mouths and thought, I would love to have sex with that person right now, because it's gross. and inconsistent hot spots, because inevitably you'll burn yourself. You'll do that weird like open mouth chewing thing to cool the food off. Nothing about this is indicative of good table manners when you're out in public on a date with a new girl or an old girl. So all of these things are things that I'd encourage you to keep in mind, because you want to have sex with her after this date, and you want to have good table manners and not turn her off and not have her turn you off. So just avoid places that would be encouraged to eat messy, sloppy, hot, spicy foods that you would eat with your hands. It's a bad combination, and it's not a sexy date meal. This meal, on the other hand, has been delightful. I hope that you are also enjoying your meal. I hope that you have enjoyed our conversation. If you are not already, I would love it if you would get on my email list. So that link is in the description box. And I love that you are tuning in for our lunch dates, where we're just going to talk about topics that apply specifically to dating scenarios, where you're eating a meal together, whether it's conversation points, whether it's etiquette, whether it's just things to keep the interest up and the ball rolling whenever you're out on a hot lunch date with your girl. So thank you so much for joining me today for our lunch date. I always enjoy our conversations. This weekend on the Bunny Show Live, we are going to do a quick, a hot seat question and answer session. So if you have questions that you want to submit, put them in the comments down below, put them in the chat, email or DM, either Fort Worth or I, and we will add them to the list. Until I see you again, whether it's on live, whether it's on the interviews, and whether it's over lunch, I appreciate you tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again. On Friday, if you haven't seen already, I am interviewing Pat Stedman. I am very excited about this. He's a great dating coach and all-around good guy. I think a lot of him, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So please tune in to my interview, the Bunny Interviews, special guest Pat Stedman on Friday. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you have a great day.